Hello and welcome back or welcome to the channel. I'm Loudguns, and today after receiving this idea from my mate Wormskull, I'm going to try and give a quick rundown of the new Master Modes flight model for 323, just in order to help existing players get to grips with the new mechanics and controls a bit quicker. This is obviously going to be far from comprehensive, as I'm still relearning a lot of this stuff myself. And it isn't going to be one of the high level critiques that you might see from the likes of Virgil or Avenger 1. But hopefully it'll prove useful and help save a bit of teething pain at the beginning of the new patch for some of you. So if this sounds good to you, then grab a cup of tea while I roll the intro, then let's get into it. I'm really keen to keep this video straightforward and to the point, so we're going to dive into some of the changes without much in the way of preamble. But one thing I will say is that since we're in such early days of 323 and the changes it's bringing, then please don't hesitate to drop your best tips down in the comments below for others to see. If you'd like any help or just want to find people to hang out with in game, then also come and join us over on the Frontier Community Discord. The link to that's just in the video description down below. But without further ado, let's kick things off with a very basic introduction to Master Modes, and essentially just how to get your ship out and underway. Master Modes brings with it 3 distinct flight modes for your ship: Landing Mode, SCM, and Nav Mode. These give you trade-offs between speed and utility. So starting from our hangar here at Seraphim Station, we're essentially by default in Landing Mode. You'll go into this whenever you have the landing gear down, so either when you start up your ship or when you're coming in for a landing. And this is going to cap you at a max speed of around 30 meters per second. So keep in mind that you want to get that landing gear up as soon as you can to access higher speeds, and that when you're coming in to land, if you put the landing gear down too early, then you're going to be locked to a crawl. Once the gear's up though, we're now in SCM. You can see we've got access to our weapons and that our shields are up, but we're capped at middling speeds. In this Hornet Mark II that I'm flying, it's going to top out at around about 220 meters per second. Before we go on to Nav mode though, let's stop and take a quick look at the reworked cruise control. By default on keyboard and mouse, you'll still find this on left alt and C, but it's going to work a bit differently and it might seem a wee bit strange at first. Activating cruise control will change the speedometer on the left of the HUD, and now you have this target circle, which will be your target speed, and the upper semicircle that displays your speed limit. The speed limiter is controlled using the mouse wheel like it was before, but you can use your throttle, W and S on the keyboard, to set your target speed within the range of 0 to that upper boundary. As you trim the speed using your throttle, your ship doesn't just stop like it did before, you'll be adjusting your target speed down. Pressing X or the brake while in cruise control will knock you down to 0 meters per second. But, and to be fair, this caught me out a couple of times, it doesn't take you out of cruise control setting. So if I apply some forward thrust with W from this standstill, then the ship will start accelerating again and remain in cruise control, just targeting that new speed. To exit cruise control entirely and manually regain control of your ship, you'll need to press Alt-C again. But if you're in need of more speed, you're going to want to switch to Nav mode. You do this by holding down B, like entering quantum travel mode before. There's a brief window while you switch over, and you're going to lose access to your weapons, shields and countermeasures. But you'll be able to achieve faster speeds, and you'll also get access to quantum travel while in this mode. QT jumps work much the same as before, align with your target destination to calibrate, and as long as your QT drive is spooled up as well, you now hold left mouse button to enter QT. I've got to say, this is much better than the previous system where it was all on the same key, and I can imagine it's going to lead to less accidental switching out of modes. Just for the avoidance of doubt, you can also cut a quantum jump like you did before, but again it's going to be by holding left mouse button. Now I'm heading off to Microtech to do a bounty cert because I want to do a little bit of blasting as part of this vid, But since it's a long haul jump, I think we'll rely on the miracle of video editing to get us there a little bit quicker. And as if by magic, we're now approaching our bounty target. I've been in nav mode because they were at a wreck site, and therefore I had to fly away to get here. But before we get into range, I'm going to want to hold B again to switch back to SCM and get my shields up and my weapons primed in time. Missiles work much the same as before. Missile operator mode is on middle mouse button. Use G to load up more missiles into a salvo and fire them with left mouse button once you've got a lock. I've got to say, maybe it's just the Hornet, but I'm not the biggest fan of the new missile animations on the HUD, and I think they could be cleaner. I'm already dreading heading out with my friend Scylla given her penchant for Rattler cluster missiles. But overall, I do quite like the new combat elements, and think that while it looks a bit more arcadey, I don't personally see this as a bad thing. Seeing when I was clocking hits was definitely more obvious, for instance. I'm not sure why the target in question was getting escorted by an Argo mole, but having a slightly bigger target here is a really good chance to try out the precision aiming. When you've got a target locked, press left alt and right mouse button to enter a zoomed in aiming mode, where it can be a bit easier to target certain areas of the ship. This is particularly satisfying for shooting the engines off something like the mole, then watching it drop out of the sky in a heavy atmosphere like Microtech's. Of course, it's not all about pew pew in Star Citizen, and I did want to take my Prospector out as well to see how scanning is looking this patch. I didn't have the time to kit my ship out properly, so I wasn't expecting to crack any particularly big rocks. I just wanted to see what finding them was like. Probably most importantly, the ping is now back on tab by default, which I for one am pretty happy with as it's a lot more intuitive than holding V. And I did find that I preferred to fly in nav mode so I could keep my speed up, and then turning on scanning mode with V helped by getting rid of the quantum markers. Sometimes StarCit's control options can be a little bit overwhelming, so it could well be that what I'm about to ask for exists and I just haven't found it yet. So please do let me know in the comments if this is the case. But one thing I've found myself really wanting, since you need to be in nav mode to travel at higher speeds but don't always want to quantum jump somewhere, is a hotkey to turn off and on the quantum travel markers, just to keep the HUD a little bit tidier. I also need to do some more testing to see how exactly we can narrow and widen the angle to the ping, since this wasn't immediately obvious to me. However, I do have to say that I really like the new HUD for the returns of minables. I think the markers of scan returns are just a lot clearer than what we had before. Scanning rocks using the scanning mode itself is still somewhat unreliable though, so I did find myself frequently wanting to press M to get my laser out, but then remembering that I had to hold B first to switch from nav mode back to SCM before pressing M to switch into mining mode. Mining mode isn't going to be accessible in that nav mode. This felt a little bit fiddly, but over time I think it will become A bit more natural, and B, CIG should hopefully improve the reliability of scanning mode itself, so switching isn't necessary. This is something I'd say is actually super important going forward to maintain the balance between industrialists and pirates. Ideally as a miner, I would want to spend as much of my time in nav mode as I could. Basically any time that I'm not actually cracking a rock, since it gives me the best chance at survival. Master modes means that I have far more chance if I break early to run away, since an aggressor would need to enter SCM to get access to their weapons, and if I'm in nav I can be widening the distance between us in that time. I'm constantly having to switch to check rocks, it's just really taking away that edge. So there we have a hopefully short and sharp introduction to master modes that might get you out of your hangar and exploring the new content a bit quicker. I've been a bit slow on the uploads recently due to some personal life stuff, but if you enjoyed the vid then please do hit subscribe to stay tuned, since we'll be back to regular programming in the coming months, and there's going to be a lot to cover with this new patch. Honestly, it's a fair bit to take in, and I think like many people I was personally a bit nervous about the changes, and didn't instantly find myself liking them that much. I would say once you get stuck in and using it for an hour or two even, then that initial hump is quite easy to get over. And I can definitely see how the changes have more headroom for the game to grow into. limiting the power of individual nimble ships, which in turn might give more importance to working in squadrons with other players, and potentially create a space for the larger multi-crew ships in the game. While I was recording this, one of the bounty certs I went for got a bit weird on the spawn, potentially overlapping another player's mission, and I ended up fighting a few cutlasses as well as my target in a sabre. And quite simply, I didn't last very long in my lone vanguard, as I struggled to outmaneuver them and their turrets just shredded me. And while getting blown up isn't necessarily my favourite thing, it is actually kinda cool in this instance, because this is probably what should happen when you take a lone fighter up against multiple adversaries. And maybe it provides more incentive for someone like me to, get good. So with all that said, thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.